The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has warned that petrol may be rationed if the Russia-Ukraine war persists. The Deputy Director General in the department, Tseliso Maqubela, says if the conflict worsens, South Africa might have to consider restrictions on the quantity of petrol motorists that will be allowed to purchase. Joining me now is the Deputy Director General in the Mineral Resources Department, Tseliso Maqubela. Very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. You've warned that petrol may have to be rationed if the war-induced oil crisis persists. Where are we standing at the moment in terms of those considerations?
Thank you very much for a good morning to you and the viewers. First of all, I want to put everyone at ease. We are far from that scenario that we presented to the Portfolio Committee yesterday. However, we need to be able to warn the public that this conflict is having an impact on global supply of finished products, especially diesel. What we were really concerned about was the availability of diesel from April forward. This is end of April, so from May, June, and so on, if the conflict persists. However, I think as things have developed overnight, we see that there is a possibility of some compromises from both sides. I think the three prime ministers that went to Kiev, yesterday, I think they are coming back probably with some movement in as far as compromise from both sides, yes.
With the compromises being something that we're all hoping to hear about, as you continue to monitor the global developments as a department, what are your conversations and focal points with oil companies on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we are having these discussions with them on a day-to-day basis, and what we have been assured is that we are okay for March, we are okay for April. However, the view is that, the prices that we saw last week would make it difficult for us to be able to procure sufficient quantities of diesel for May. But, of course, the price of crude has since come down from the 140 of last week. It is now sitting just below $100. Partly because of a shutdown in China, Shenzhen, the city, which has got 17 million people, has gone on a lockdown. And that basically reduces the demand for petroleum products.
And even before the Russia-Ukraine situation, South African consumers were already concerned about, fuel levies and taxes and the way that they calculate it. So much so that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana also made mention of it last year, saying that there must be changes on how the fuel price is calculated, as already the country's motorists pay record high prices. So where does this now leave the conversation in going forward? A situation which has been exacerbated by the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, Russia. What does it mean now when it comes to considerations that are being put on the table to indeed lower the cost of fuel?
Well, I think at the moment we must indicate to everyone that we are in a global economic crisis in as far as fuel is concerned. All countries have hit record highs, the US, New Zealand, Australia, everywhere, India. But we are continuing our conversations with National Treasury. The main cause, really, of these high, prices that we've seen was the build-up of forces along the Ukraine border. That took place over time. So that was priced into the fuel price even as far back as January. So the market had foreseen that something was going to happen. So we are continuing our conversations on what else we can do. However, we really want to, to appeal to the motorists, but also then the population to understand that we are not alone in this. All countries are facing the same high prices of petroleum products.
And how much pressure are you working against as we consider the effect of the Ukraine-Russia situation, together with some discussions that were already underway here at home before that ongoing crisis was underway, including suggestions that were put on the table were separating the fuel levy from the basic fuel price, deregulating South Africa's price cap, and also looking at a halt on tax increases. What does that conversation mean with the ongoing situation that you're also faced with dealing with?
Well, we are already having some discussions on, one or two levies that we think we can move out of the system. But I mean, if I can give an indication, the minister mentioned the demand side management levy yesterday. That basically will net us a 10 cents decrease. And in the situation that we're in, we are expecting that the prices will increase, for both diesel and petrol by over 1 rand. And in fact, for diesel, over 2 rands per liter. So if you remove 10 cents, it is something, but in the bigger scheme of things, it is minuscule, to put it mildly, yeah.
With your concerns around the availability of diesel towards the end of the month, and of course, as you continue to monitor the situation, what does this mean for energy-saving measures here at home, and perhaps looking at what people who need to go to work, perhaps a work-from-home scenario, appealing to companies to accommodate that for a longer stretch of time, in the midst of COVID-19?
Yeah, so as we indicated, we are in the middle of a global, economic crisis, war, as you can put it. So in our view, there has to be some movement from the private sector as well. If people can work from home, you actually then begin to make sure that their income can go that much further. So we think that we're suggesting that this is the time where you can consider people working from home if they have the tools of trade. That's one, because then you are saving, them having to pay for fuel. The other considerations, of course, would need other structures of government because we felt that there are two sectors that would worry us. One is the public transport sector, because they are going to react to the high prices. And then secondly is the food production sector. So we think that if there's anything to be done, it is to protect those two sectors, because public transport, for example, taxis move most of our workers, but also then, we need to protect the production of food because the diesel is going to hit hard at farmers, for example.
In your protection of those two sectors and really looking at the ripple effect, what suggestions are on the table as you make means and measures to ensure that sense of security? Well,
I think they I'd be speaking out of 10 because that is the domain of other government departments. We just put those suggestions to Parliament yesterday, but they would need to be processed by other departments. For example, the Agriculture Department, Transport, as well as National Treasury. They would have to look at what is available, and I think we are cognizant of the fact that we have a constrained fiscus. Already the Minister of Finance has, sacrificed by not increasing the fuel levy and the road accident fund levy. And he did that when he did not increase taxes. So we believe that already there's been a movement from the side of government.
What does this ongoing war should it continue for longer than expected? I mean, we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa himself has been put on the mediation benches to try broker some sort of positive solution. What does it mean for fuel taxes, should it continue?
Well, I really don't want to go into the tax domain because, the colleagues from Treasury regard that jealously. But what I want to say is that why we're having these high diesel prices, for example, is that 56% of Europe's diesel comes from the Russian Federation. Now, with the sanctions that are there and people being afraid of buying or doing any, economic activity with the Russian Federation, it means that the Europeans themselves have to find alternatives for diesel. And those alternatives begin to compete with our sources of diesel. And that is why, we think that this conflict must come to an end as soon as possible because it's going to affect, all countries, particularly developing countries.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time and weighing in on this discussion. Deputy Director General there from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, Tseliso Maqubela, speaking about the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict when it comes to the price of oil and, of course, the fuel prices here at home.